going to have to get there, but they're going to get dragged there. What they need now is an out, right? Like they need an off ramp to this totally unsustainable extinction level position that climate change is not real and it's not happening. But you're seeing that rhetoric only increase from the GOP right now.
I think there's a clear middle ground, which is, the left and the environmentalists are like, we get that nuclear isn't ideal compared to renewables, but we'll put that in the mix. A lot more people have accepted nuclear. So I feel like nuclear could be the common ground where the two sides could be like, you know what? We can't be, fighting with Putin and the Middle East and, OPEC. So even people on the left I'm hearing are like, yeah, a little bit of natural gas as a bridge to get a nuclear to get us to sustainability. Right. I'm okay with, which obviously I'm okay with. Like, yeah, sure, burn a little bit extra. Now, if we're investing in nuclear, if we're investing in all these other sustainable things, I'm okay with a little bit. If it's clean,
I mean, listen, all I'm saying is we're always moving. They're never moving. So, like, at some point,
I think they've moved a little bit.
I think they have moved zero. They have moved in the other direction. Like, I am serious when I say that the rhetoric about climate change has only gotten worse from the GOP. In fact, there was a big article about how, like, 10 years ago, you know what? It doesn't matter. Find your own off-ramp. It's not my job to figure, like, right? Like, you can say, if they're going to sit there and say it's because of the ESG, but not fund anything to save people's lives from climate change, like,
I know they're crazy sometimes, but I look at my crazy uncles as like, I need to like.
Sorry, Nick. I said I would swear less.
I look at the crazy uncles who are like, it doesn't exist, and I'm like, come on, you know it exists. So let's just get over there. Well, I don't want to have to, have a woman on the board of my company, and I'm like, okay, fine. I get it. You don't want the ladies in the board.
I don't want to have those conversations anymore. I do not know how we got here.
I was talking nuclear, and then she brought up the ESG thing, and I wanted to know Molly's position on ESG.
I was talking algae.
I heard ESG algae. I heard ES algae. That's what they're stuck on. It's like, don't tell me how to run my company and don't give me goals for diversity. Like, Slootman said, like, listen, we want to be diverse, but we need to grow the business first and foremost. So we're just going to hire the best people as quick as we can. We're not slowing down to make the numbers look better. He was just,
and that's how nothing ever changes. Great.
Well, yes. And, it's like that group of people, you're going to have to, like, give them. Yeah. I just, what else could why would you attach governance? And, sustainability and environment, they sound like two sides of the same coin. Maybe they should be together. Are they the same thing?
Yeah, they're the same. That's the
same thing. Mm-hmm. So the ES is the same.
The S stands for social. The S does not stand for sustainable.
Social.
Yeah, it's environmental, social, and governance. And because for a long time, like, there was no division in any company or any investment firm related to environmental
the social and the
issues
and the environment and just make it three different things. E comma E period S period G period. Everybody can fight over those things separately. Like, what are we going to do? Put religion in there too? ESRG? We're never going to get anything done.
I see that you're practicing for All-In later.
I mean, it is part of it. I do have to, you do have to convince some people We're actually highly sympathetic to diversity, but we just don't want to override merit.
Oh my God.
If I start doing that,
I cannot
I
engage
start
with this.
compromising the company's mission literally. I could see people interpreting that either.
No, yeah. But you know what? Because it really does sound like what you're saying is, I am assuming that women and people of color are not as skilled, right? Like,
That would be the most cynical.
sometimes you have to work harder to find people who have equal merit.
Well, here's as follows. We need to come to a more moderate, real place. There's really no room for the hysteria and the outrage. We're CEOs, we run companies, we have to produce results for our employees and our partners and our investors and our customers. You can't get distracted in that mission. When you do, you might as well hang it up and let somebody else do it. So actually, I think he kind of doubled down on it.
Yeah,
I thought that was going in a certain
Now
direction.
I'm swearing again. He doubled down. Yeah,
He tripled
Giblets
down.
in the note. He's
He
like,
kinda
did
tripled down.
that say override merit? He's like, I'm not going to be hiring all these dumb women just to look better.
You know what? It has to do with.
It's not well put. Let me put
It's
it
not
that
well
way.
put. And
Right.
the more subtle point is
But they were
there
supposed to
might
in a
be
meeting.
specific positions or jobs we're finding whatever kind of diversity you're looking for, gender, race, geographic, there just might not be as many candidates, back to the pipeline problem. So if you were to look at graduate schools right now, majority of graduate schools, it's majority female. So to get a male version of some degree is just much harder. So you might have it go reverse
I don't
to
have-
what people expect.
I mean, look, women are 50% of the population.
They're not 50% of developers.
Like, if you look at, I know, but what I'm saying is, I don't have any patience for somebody being like, if it has to, I'd have to hire somebody less qualified, or it's overriding. Like, do the work. Like, do the work.
I know, but what about the issue of pipeline? I mean, I don't know why this is
What
controversial.
he's saying is, I don't want to find him and train him. And I think what we're going to see increasingly is that companies are actually going to become the Votex. Like, companies are going to be upskilling people. And so he's just like, I don't have any patience for
Well, I
that. I
talked
don't have
about
any time
this
for
on the
that.
blueprint. Grow with Google. Have you seen this, Molly?
No.
Google
Awesome.
obviously cares a lot about diversity, inclusion, all the social stuff. They have 5 free courses, and they're like, I'm guaranteeing you those 5 courses probably have some gender, race challenges in terms of pipeline, and they made free courses to, I'm going to assume, increase the number of candidates, but also increase the candidates to create more diversity. So
Right.
you can do that. I think that's like, if
can
you're
do
doing that,
You could do skills matching instead of, if you're just, like, let's say you're filtering just by a master's degree, which a lot of developer positions do. Like, I'm not going to
They
argue
do?
that there aren't a lot of, that there aren't more male developers than female developers. That's 100% true.
Yeah.
However, we also have all of these filters in place that exclude skilled candidates without certification. So certification is what's going to probably start to go away, and you're going to say like, oh, I've got somebody who is is perfectly skills matched to this and this and this, but doesn't have the degree, doesn't have 5 years experience, and I might have to invest 6 months in training with them, but I'm Frank Slubin and I don't want to. And so then it's like, oh, awesome, nothing ever changes. Nothing ever changes.
yeah, I mean, a great way to do it too would be to look at, I don't know why this doesn't come up in these social discussions, is what are the percentage of graduates, for the last 10 years? And then what are our percentages in our company, right? So if you were to look at MBAs and then or look at applications, right? That's actually where, like, if you look at Y Combinator, I think they did a really good job of saying, here's the applicants to Y Combinator, and then here's the acceptance. And then they started to say, like, is this problem happening when we accept people? And they took ownership of it, which I thought was pretty brave.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, listen, we have 20%, I'm just making a number, let's say, 5 years, 10% females founded companies, now it's 20%, we're accepting 6%. Okay, where's that other 4% going? Is it that the male pitches were that much better? Or is it that maybe the people who are evaluating the ideas are biased or have unconscious bias?
Like, you are going to have to slow down is the thing, and I say this with all due respect to General Slutman, like, you do have to slow down. You do have to be intentional. You do have to put in a little bit of extra work, and then you know what you get out of it? Empirically, better businesses. Like, you get better companies. You have you can reach more customers because you have a literal diversity of thought of people being like, actually, who would buy this is this person because I'm that person, and you never considered that before. Like, the data really bears out that that's an investment worth making, and so to act like, oh, everything is going so great that and I'm not saying everything isn't going great for Snowflake, it obviously is, but to say, like, we don't have time to do that is just like, okay, see you in the dustbin, buddy. See you in the dustbin.
Well, it also costs very little to nothing for a company at that scale, and maybe they haven't, to create a training program. And literally, the blueprint I talked about this week was about investing in drafting and developing talent, and you go to the professional development here, and you might have noticed that an awful lot of females here in that room when we do it. I don't even know, statistically, aside from female founded firms, of male founded firms, I wonder, investment team, is it 60% female?
It's low, yeah, something like that.
And I wonder if on male firms, what the average, of more than 5 people, let's say, 10 people or more, what is the average female-male ratio? It's interesting.
Yeah.
And it wasn't by design, I just hired those people.
Oh, you didn't have to override merit in order to get, like, naturally accidental, totally working diversity?
It's not an investing if you're saying you're training people, which was what we're doing.
Right.
So we're training researchers into associates, into principals, into managing directors. It's been a 7-year journey for me. I've got 3 managing directors, and a bunch of researchers, associates, and principals.
And
So you have to be willing to do development.
To be clear, Nodies, we're not hiring people. This is not an expensive, we are training each other. Like,
It's a
people
relationship.
don't understand, like, your LPs are your bosses. That's your
fund, yeah, it could feel more like they're your bosses, I suppose. Especially if you have a giant LP, like 50%. That's why the advice I got from a lot of my mentors was nobody should have more than 10% of your no more than 5%. So if you have a $100 million fund, the biggest check you should take is 5 or 10. I think that's not very practical, but ideally, then you've got this diversification. So if anyone or 2 people don't come in, you don't have to replace a $25 million check. You have to replace a $5 million check. A little bit easier to do.
right.
In my case, it might wind up with too many investors. We already have too many accredited investors. So we can have 2,000 of those qualified. We only have 250 of the accredited. We're going to fill that up pretty quickly, instantly. So we'll probably, like last time, have to have a bit of a lottery for people to put their request in. They put in a 50K check or a 100K check will come up with some size, and that 10 million will fill up real quick. But you see a lot of people, Mac, were you on the call with Mac when we interviewed him?
No, I listened to it though.
Oh, you listened to it?
Yeah.
So Mac met me, and I think I'm an LP in Mac's fund. I've LP'd maybe 3 or 4 of these funds, and I just put in 10 or 25K checks just to be supportive and build relationships with people who are publicly raising. I would not have known about it.
Right.
I mean, I do get people emailing me. Please don't email me. I do like 1 new fund a year. And
I got like 2 of those for you if you want.
No more, please. I got to put it into our fund. I'm going to be on the hook for putting a lot of money into our funds. So
I have a question about that too. I'm going to sneak in a bonus question. Somebody emailed the other day and asked me a question about, or I was talking to a friend or something and said what is your capital requirement for working as a VC? And I was like, what are you talking about?
You're not a partner yet. You're a managing director.
But when you're a partner, like you're expected to be
the standard would be
in your own fund.
Yes. So they want to see skin in the game. Mm-hmm. They're realistic about it. So, a Sequoia fund, Doug Neal, Michael Moritz, like maybe they're expected to put millions of dollars. It's a $300 million fund. They might expect, and let's say there were 5 partners in that fund, they might expect those 5 partners to put in $2 million each, $10 million. So that's only, if it's 10 million on 200, it's 5% of 10 million on 400, it's only 2.5%. But it's a big number. It's a lot of cash to come up with, It's not de minimis. And then you're doing it every 3 years, so you got to come up with more money. With a new fund, like these $10 million micro funds, $20 million funds, they might expect nothing if it's a first-time fund manager. And then over time, they might expect more. And so in our funds, I was typically in the $10 million funds. I think I was 2 or 3%. I'm trying to remember. So I put $200,000 or $300,000 of my own money. And so I think for, me as a solo GP, general partner, with a bunch of MDs and folks around me, maybe 1% is what people would expect me to put in. If it was 5 partners, and eventually it will be, they would expect each person to put in 1% or a 0.5%. And they would have some flexibility. If you Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz, and then you hire somebody who's a billionaire, those 3 might put $2 million each into the fund. And then you have 3 other partners who are up and coming, they might say $250 each. But just some skin in the game to feel good about.
Nick is pointing out in our chat that apparently Tiger Global Partners committed $1 billion of their own cash to invest in seed funds that focus on backing the youngest startups. From March of this year. Interesting.
The Tiger Global Partners, $1 billion of their own cash. I wonder how much the whole fund would have been.
It says Tiger Global Partners famously put in almost their entire $1 billion fund. Like,
Oh, they put it in their entire building.
they did it almost like a family office.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
and I think that's what Chamath does. He's got like a family office kind of approach right
Right.
now, and if you watch Billings, you can see hacks go from wanting to have other people's money to having his own and vacillating back and forth. So just some skin in the game is, I think, what people are looking for. And, for me, I'm really interested to see how it goes. You could get, people who are hard to work with, like any other partners. The good news is if they have only a small amount of the fund, you cannot invite them back to the next one.
Is it hard to get, there are certain things that you have to get LP consent on, right? So I could imagine that could also be a thing if you have lots and lots of LPs as a result of something like this.
You generally set those things up in advance, and it's a 3-year fund, so if you were going to make any kind of change, like I don't think I've made any changes to our fund structure, and so I would just wait to the next fund and do a different structure, right?
Got it.
So
Yeah.
you're better off just waiting, because going and collecting a bunch of signatures and explaining it to people would be kind of hard. I do think sometimes people will, like, I think we talked about recycling, like pay the first 10% back, first $1 million back, we can recycle. I think I had one fund that I was in said to me, hey, we want to, we didn't add recycling, we want to add recycling because we think it's in our best interest, and all the LPs basically, yeah, of course, go do that.
Right.
Because they didn't know about recycling. That's why VC Sunday School exists, so that fund managers and investors can learn together.
Absolutely.
We're all learning.
Also, apparently, we're raising a fund, everybody.
Launch Fund 4 coming. Yeah.
Very
And
exciting.
I'll everybody knows my email address, jason@calicanis.com, and there'll be some formal announcement about it as well. Pin into my Twitter, like, hey, the next 3 weeks.
I like this. It's a relief. I don't like not talking about stuff.
I'm gonna basically do like 3 webinars where I'll just get on a Zoom and people can go and then they can submit questions and ask questions, and I'll just talk for 45 minutes or an hour about what our plans are. You get to listen to those. And then I may want to go on the road and meet a couple people. Because I did meet with some of the top endowments over the first 3 funds, but the funds were smaller, so there really wasn't room. Their minimum check size was 50, and the last fund was 44 million. The 2 funds before that were 10 and 11 with a little recycling. So this one will go for a little bit bigger, I think, and we'll see how it goes. And I'm going to be raising during a down market. I fully expect, I'll fill up, all the small checks or the medium-sized checks, but it might take 6 months, perhaps even a year in this kind of a market for me to get to round up the bigger checks. But I'm okay with that. I think my understanding is fund managers used to take a full year to 2 years to raise a fund. So they would start raising the fund, start investing. People would look at the performance of the first 6 months of investments, and then that would incent more people to come in because they get a little more insight into how you're doing as a fund. But the fund does need to close. There's a reasonable window, and I think the reasonable window is 1 year. So I'll be kicking that off in September, and then going for a year, and I'm gonna have to go get on planes and go meet people and shake hands in all kinds of cities, and maybe even internationally, and say, hey, here's what we're doing. We want to put a chip in and be partners with things. And I'm kind of excited to do it because I never sell. I never go out and sell. I never take credit for what I do. I'm not out there selling. I'm excited to go out and see and pitch people and say, hey, here's what I'm doing. Like, is this exciting to you? Would you like to, put $5 or $10 or $25 million into this fund? I'm kind of excited about it.
Yep. I love it. And raising in public, I'm sorry, is just on brand. It's just more on brand for you. It's the way to go.
I think it should be better. Hoping for the best. Listen, if you're a founder or an employee of a startup, it's critical that you become capital efficient at a time like this. Fundraising, really hard. And your burn rate, hey, that might make you unfunded.
Are literally out here saying, if you're a big investment, if you're BlackRock and you're invested in ESG funds, then the Florida Pension Fund will not be allowed to participate.
Well, that's because they're
going harder.
That's because of the G, I think.
They're going harder on anti-climate. They really are. And yes, it's because it's like wrapped up in social stuff and they think it's like woke to be.
I didn't put environment with the social stuff. It seems like unnecessary to.
It's a little bit legacy. I wish I could. This is going to be my least popular TED Talk ever, is that we do probably need to figure out how to separate the E from the S and the G. Like, we really do, because we are not going to solve racism before we have to address climate, because the time to address climate is actually 100 years ago, but we should start today. And so we do have this, we have a situation where equity is becoming a blocker for some environmental forward momentum, and it is giving Republicans an excuse to be against climate change, which is extinction level behavior, right? And so and frankly, it just makes it all the more reason that you could never vote for one. Like, it's just like, look, if you want us all to die and that's your party position, that's a loser.
Republicans are living in states where they're being impacted by climate. So they're changing their position, especially when they start
water.
Yeah, and they're also like, hey, I need funds to fix these problems. So they can't anymore. It's not sustainable to be anti-climate, pro-business, and not having to put, because they're seeing the cost of it, like you're saying. The cost is apparent. And so when you see the heat wave
and the danger
grids coming down, and they want to get that government money. So if they say that climate is, climate
change is not real.
Isn't real,
right?
Then how can they get the money to fix the climate stuff?
Right. They'll be saying that they're on like an
Had people suggest this. Is instead of having 10 people with the majority being trained up, just hire 2 partners and or 3 partners and put all that money towards that. So don't have 10 people, have 3. And just pay people 3 times as much and just get senior people. But I through whatever circumstance, these small funds, you don't have the big budget, so I kind of built a support team around me that I was like, if you guys want to become VCs and go from, operations people to VCs, I'll teach you. And they were like, yeah, would you? I was like, sure. Be a journalist? You want to learn investing? Okay.
Yeah.
Sure, why not? It doesn't seem that hard to me. That's the other thing is I think people also overestimate how hard it is to learn something and underestimate people's ability to learn something if they're motivated.
Yes.
If people are motivated to learn venture, I can tell you that because it's great. Not supposed to curse.
I know. Sorry,
Family
Nick.
show. All right. Thanks, everybody. All right, listen, I enjoyed the interview. Sorry for the deriding.
Right. And enjoy the interview.
Eat your algae, everybody.
About algae. Don't eat it. You don't eat it.
Don't eat
you
it.
bury it.
Bury your algae, everybody. Listen, Masterclass is the best way to learn from world-class instructors at the top of their fields. I love this product. We use it in our household. We've got a yearly subscription, and their amazing courses include my guy Steph Curry teaching shooting and ball handling, legendary and former Disney CEO Bob Iger teaching you about business leadership and strategy. That's a great course. I've watched it. And I recently watched Chris Voss, a former FBI lead hostage negotiator, teach the art of negotiation. Now, you may have read his book, you may have done the audiobook, whatever. Those are great. I love Chris Voss. I've heard him be interviewed on podcasts. But when he sits down and does a master class, that is the pinnacle of him sharing information. And it is so well done. You're going to learn a ton. Each one of these looks like a movie. The production value and the joy of watching these, you're going to really enjoy the aesthetics while getting all of that amazing information. They have 11 categories with over 150 instructors now. And the lessons are about 10 to 15 minutes long, so they can fit into your busy schedule. And you can get unlimited access to every single masterclass. That's the big innovation here. For 15% off an annual membership. Go to masterclass.com/startups. Masterclass.com/startups for 15% off.
Raphael Jovine is founder and chief scientist at Brilliant Planet. And I think it is probably safest, Raphael, if I just let you explain what you guys are building here.
Okay, no worries. Thank you very much, and thank you for having us. And it's really exciting, actually. So what Brilliant Planet does is we grow algae really cheaply the way they grow nature. Half the planet is driven by algae in the ocean, algal photosynthesis, and it is what moves most of the carbon on the planet. And so what we wanted to do is take advantage of a lot of free resources like empty desert land, lots of sunlight. There's a lot of sunlight out there. Deep ocean water. There's more than 50 times the nutrients that we use every year on land available in the ocean at any one point in time. And you bring that rich ocean water together with local algae in those empty deserts, in those empty coastal deserts, and grow more biology, grow more algae, grow more biomass. And it's the whole point of it was supposed to be additive. It was supposed to be new growth that wouldn't happen by itself. The idea was if you can grow a lot of algae, they will absorb a lot of CO2. We can do that very cheaply, and then we can harvest those algae, dry them with sunlight, just the way it is in the desert, and bury them to remove that carbon from the atmosphere. So the whole point of it from the very get-go, at the very beginning, was the first patent was a method of carbon sequestration, and we wanted to be able to use what nature gives us in the way that it gives it to us to do more and increase more nature, more biomass to draw down that carbon. That's what we do.
Tell me about how efficient these algae blooms are in terms of carbon sequestration, because when you describe it, you know, all new fields of algae and using seawater and, you know, getting that into the desert and then harvesting and then drying it out, it sounds like not super efficient, so I'm assuming that it must sequester a lot of carbon to make all of that work.
Oh, for sure. So, per square meter per year, we can sequester 30 times as much CO2 than a forest does. And so it is, there are no leaves, there are no roots, there are no trunks, there are no branches. It's very simple in terms of all of the biology goes into growing more algae that capture more carbon. And so it is a very, very past system. What the real invention was is that in nature these algal blooms happen very episodically, usually in the springtime and usually in the autumn. And what we normally witness is sort of fish laying eggs and everything to coincide with those blooms. It's the base of the food chain. And so all we wanted to do was to take advantage of the local organisms the way they like it in those exponential growing, very rapidly growing algal blooms and make that happen in our ponds year round. The real invention is that we got to sort of perpetuate that phenomenon in our ponds all year round. And we've now done this in South Africa, in Oman. South Africa is very cold in the wintertime. Oman is really intensely hot in the summertime. Across a huge range of environments, and now we're in a more moderate place in Morocco, and we've now run this for 5 years in the real world, not in the lab, in actual production scale. We've got the largest algal raceway pond in Morocco, probably in the world, and it is, and it's shown us that we can do this even through COVID, when there were very stringent COVID restrictions in Morocco, and you couldn't go in and out. But the local team continued to grow things with what nature gives them right there. And so it's been a very good experience in the sense that we've seen this now work through a whole lot of different seasons, a whole lot of different environments with local challenges, of course. What makes us confident about this is two things. One is the algal growth process works really well. But the other thing is there's an enormous amount of empty desert land available. And the reason why I say that is there's virtually an infinite amount of nutrients available in the ocean. Obviously, there's an excess of CO2 right now in the environment. And we really genuinely believe that we can scale this to a really significant level. The other part that makes us confident is that we've now spent a years trying to identify all the places where costs creep in. And we've got a collaboration, for example, with Southampton University that has been very, very productive, where they look at our paddle wheels and how we mix the algae in our ponds and keep them in suspension. And they have reduced the cost of that paddle wheel by 90%. We've learned from shrimp farmers how to sort of pump the water once and percolates through the system by gravity. So we don't have any pumps. We've learned from the miners how to remove the algal biomass very cheaply on these, again, very passive screens that are gravity fed. And so the point is, you spend the years to try to strip out all the electricity costs and all the energy costs and from a life cycle analysis point of view, make this a very, very low technology, low cost, low operational effort system, so that when we pull that carbon out, that we actually really have a net big impact.
And then walk me again through the sort of end of life of the algae. Is it just dried and buried, or is it used as any kind of a biofuel?
No. Of course we looked at biofuels, and when I started this, my mates used to come to me and say, why is it so expensive to grow biofuels? And I thought, well, hang on a minute. Every puddle, every pool turns green if you turn around. So what are we doing wrong? Algae grow for free all the time, everywhere on the planet. So
There's been a misunderstanding. I need you to help clear it up. One
saw on top of the shop. Man, pay for it. What you have, you know, he's got my car. We are airborne and in route.
Let's go! Come on! Come on! Come on!
Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I'm on top of Chill out. It's under control. Relax. I got this. Chill out. It's under control.
Trying to kill me back here? Shit! They're still on us!
Relax. I got this.
Is that it? Are they gone?
Of course they're gone. What are you talking? Come on, I'll take you back to the house.
There's no point in losing the cops if I'm dead in the back seat. Don't say it.
What?
That I have everything I want, so why am I stealing?
Oh, my
I need your help to find the lieutenant. Our soldier friend said he saw Napoleon El Pequeño's private island. So you and me are going to take a boat from a dock in Siniestra to Cayo Real. We take out this Singao and Jose's whole operation from us. But keep this between you and me, okay? Papa's got enough stress to deal with right now. See you at the